right. I've got a question for you guys. I posed this to the Google Plus community and Facebook and Twitter as well. Just after my experience in New York and Boston this week, what do you guys prefer? Watching wrestling on TV, be it TNA or WWE, or would you rather attend a live event?
I'd rather attend a live event, but that being said, they've got to be decent seats. If I'm up in freaking nosebleeds, it's not as fun. I mean, it's always great to go if you've got good friends who enjoy wrestling as well, but when you're it can be difficult if it's a lackluster show and they really have to rely on the commentary to get through it, and you're a fan in the audience and you don't hear that commentary. I mean, granted, on one hand, hey, I'm not listening to King, but on the other hand, I'm not hearing, how to install the WWE app, and that's really a problem. If you don't hear that five times in one night, what are you going to do with your life? Okay, fine.
Kevin, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a tough call. I mean, it's because you do get the announcers, you do get a little bit more of the hype, but it's still always amazing to be there and say that you were there when that happened. I'm gonna actually say TV, but I love going to a live event. And I think it's really fun. But half the fun of wrestling for me is being particularly pay-per-views, is being with the crew and just kind of talking about the matches and debriefing and being surprised about that stuff and and what we think's coming next and all that. So I think there is an element where it lends itself more favorably to TV in some ways. So, and it is supposed to be more of an entertainment industry. So I'll say TV, but just barely.
Yeah, I've got to lean towards TV just from my own personal experience. Like, I've been to a TNA house show, and it wasn't that great of an experience. Like, the show itself, the matches that were put on, they were great. I saw Joe and Magnus against Austin Aries and Rude. And that was a fantastic match. Both the wrestling involved and Aries and Rude just hamming it up. I think TNA does really well with the house shows on that respect. On the other hand, I was in a really shitty arena that was about half full, and the friend that I was supposed to be going with bailed on me at the last second, so I was sitting by myself with people I didn't know. So it wasn't that great of an experience from just being a fan in the audience. So I still want to go see like a TV taping, either for Impact or Raw or SmackDown even. But just from my own experiences, and given that I'm pretty much a homebody anyway, I have to go with watching it on TV.
For me, man, I haven't been to a live wrestling show in ages. When I did go, it was a WWE WWF house show. I forget if it was around the WWE WWF changeover. Um, it it was fun. It was kind of cool, but you miss a lot with being on TV. Plus, I've never really. I'm not a really big fan of live sporting events. I like sitting in my living room. I like sitting on my couch. I like getting up and going to the bathroom and not having to go past 15 guys and waiting in line at a urinal that smells really, really terrible. Which
you love guys.
Normal human urine should not smell like that, especially when applied to walls liberally, like it has been. I don't like crowds. I don't like.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like crowds. I get claustrophobic. I'm not a live show kind of guy. So I prefer TV all the way. And yeah, you're stuck listening to King and the WWE app, like Joe mentioned, but there's always the mute button, or I can put music on, or I can just sigh, write it down on my phone, and then reference it later on the show and make fun of it with you guys.
So, All right, so from the live chat, we're getting kind of mixed, but mostly it's along the lines of, with all the different camera angles, and comfortable seating, and you can see everything, and you do have the commentary, so you do have that story being told. TV mostly wins, but obviously being involved in the live atmosphere is an experience in itself. I went, obviously you guys know Lee was in town, so we went to Raw in Cleveland. Then we went to TNA in New York City and Money in the Bank in Boston. So over the last 2 weeks, I've been to 3 live events, 2 WWE, and obviously one for TNA. Well, two for TNA if you count.
Well, hang on.
The tape 2 shows. What?
I was about to say, yeah, it's technically 2 TNA shows you saw.
It's technically 2. So my experience, and I'm basing it specifically on this. Like I've always gone to, if I've ever gone to a live show, I've enjoyed my time there, but mostly because of the atmosphere. But I've always missed something. Seats were always the issue. Like if you sit on the floor, but you don't get in the first 2 or 3 rows, you can't see a damn thing. We were 5 rows back for Raw, and still struggled to see everything. Even though we were on the aisle and we had the whole, if you guys remember from a couple weeks ago, Dean Ambrose and Rollins were fighting on the outside. We were right there, and even though they were like 4 people away from me, I could not see a single thing, and that sucked. That really hampered the experience. Going to an indie event, though, Joe and I and Kevin, we've gone to events at Clash Wrestling in Michigan. It's nice to be able to go to an event like that because of the smaller venue, because there's less people, and because you know that what you are saying is being heard and you're interacting with the wrestlers. So you reacting means something. I totally get that with an indie wrestling show. You start chanting someone, and they can play into that. The wrestlers can play into that. The managers on the outside can play into that, and that's really cool. It's really cool to experience a wrestling event from that side of things. I don't get that with WWE events. Even 5 rows back, I don't feel like I was in a position at that point to really be able to interact with the wrestlers. And that's the main reason why you go to a live show, is to be able to get into the event and feel like you're a part of something. I don't get that from WWE. I don't know if it's just because they're so big. Even with 5 rows back, TNA, on the other hand, if you have an opportunity, especially with the August shows coming up in New York City, go. That was the most fun I've ever had at a wrestling event. It was a small crowd, so we're talking maybe 1,000 people. So it was a small venue, but everyone was involved. Everyone got involved in every single match. We were 2 rows back, so I was able to slap hands with a few of the wrestlers, and that was really cool to be able to interact and feel like you're a part of the show. So for WWE events, I would be fine never going to another WWE event again. I would be fine watching those at home because, yeah, you guys are right. Camera angles, being able to know what's going on at all times, I'd rather have that. But for TNA, I'd rather go to a show like that than watch it on TV, even though they tape it so strangely. Like I don't know because I don't know if this gets talked a lot about as far as in spoilers and everything, but the way TNA tapes events, or at least these 2, is they tape like the first half of one show, then went into Destination X, and then at some point transitioned into the end of the first show. It was really strange, but it was great. It was just constant wrestling, constant involvement, and yeah, I felt like I was a part of something.
Yeah, I'm completely with you on the TNA experience. Like I went into how shitty everything surrounding the show was as far as the venue and whatnot, but the wrestlers' interactions is what made that show for me. Again, Austin Aries and Bobby Roode, they were spectacular, not only in that match, but before the match when they were coming out. There is some older redneck dude by the aisle coming down, He's yelling at him, swearing up and down that Sting is going to come out and destroy the both of them. Sting wasn't booked for the show, by the way. And they just played right into that. It's like asking the crowd, do you guys see Sting anywhere? The redneck's pointing up at this corner of the ceiling saying Sting is going to show up right there. It's completely lit. Nothing's there. And they're just giving this guy shit like up and down. It was absolutely hilarious. And that was a constant for the rest of the night. Like the wrestlers, I don't want to say the WWE wrestlers don't care about the audience, but it's obvious that the TNA wrestlers do care about interacting with the crowd.
But I think that the TNA guys get a better opportunity to do that because they're not selling as big of a venue.
Sure.
Because I've seen the TNA. I've done the TNA house show, and it was a nice small venue.
Well, the first house show.
Yeah, it was one of the first ones. But it was interesting because, they could hear you. They could peck at individual voices and react. Whereas when you go to a WWE event, even if it's a WWE live event, there's still a shit ton of people. It's almost too much.
Yeah.
So even if they pick out one person, it's hard for everybody to see that guy. Whereas TNA, be it pro or con for this, but with the smaller venue, if some guy's talking, shouting at Samoa Joe, and Samoa Joe turns around and gets on the mic, it's like, hey, blah 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 blah, shut the fuck up, blah blah blah. At least it's closer to everybody else because there's not as many people there to deal with. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah, totally.
And you can say the same thing about like going to a baseball game. We go to the Indians game or a Tigers game or whatever, and it's very apparent that you are not being heard as an individual until everyone is doing whatever chant you're doing or your cheer, or when a home run is hit and everyone's popping. That's when you know you are being heard because everyone's being heard. You go to a like a AAA or a AA, like one of the smaller league baseball games, and you can sit a couple rows back in the bleachers and be able to heckle the shit out of one of the outfielders on the opposite team, and they hear you and they will respond. And that's nice. It's just a nice feeling. Otherwise, you're just watching a baseball game. You could do that on TV without getting sunburned.
So I haven't been to a live indie show. It's on my bucket list of things to do, though. But I have been to a lot of live. I've been to live concerts, and there is something to be said for the difference between being one of like 50,000 people in an outdoor, festival setting, watching a band that's like a quarter mile away, versus being in just a small, intimate, ideally dive bar where the band is surrounded by a chain link. A chain link backdrop, and the audio is terrible, and the quality, everything, the quality's awful. The entire place smells like stale beer, but there's something more real about that. It's an ECW arena, yeah.
Yeah, there is something to be appreciated by a WWE show. It's so big, and there's just so many people, and that's cool. That's cool to be a part of, for sure. But just the overall experience, I'd rather watch it on TV. If I'm there for the actual event, for what happens in the ring, we don't even get all the segments. Like we can't, like a lot of the segment, the backstage stuff, we don't see live. So
or even all the finishes.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just I would much rather watch for something that big. I'd rather watch on TV. But for something like a TNA show or an indie show, I'd much rather be there live to experience it and to be able to feel like I'm a part of, or I'm actually interacting with what's happening, not just sitting there twiddling my thumbs.
MTW Podcast.